At the company gala, my misogynist boss joked about my promotion, smirking, "A woman in leadership? Cute." So I played his emails on the big screen. Bribes, harassment settlements, and him begging the CEO's wife for one more chance. The crowd gasped as she slapped him. Security carried him out, sobbing. "A woman in leadership? Cute." I felt the sting of those words as laughter spread through the crowd at our annual company gala. Standing there, frozen in front of 200 colleagues, I knew exactly what I needed to do. The folder hidden on my USB drive would finally serve its purpose. 5 years of documented abuse, harassment, and corruption were about to come to light. My name is Elaine Parker, and I never intended to become a corporate vigilante. It all began 3 years ago with a simple note on a yellow post-it. Meeting with Richard called me emotional when questioning budget discrepancy. Look into vendor contracts. That single note grew into a detailed record of every dismissive comment, every interrupted presentation, and every inappropriate remark my boss Richard Connolly made. I couldn't ignore the pattern. During my first year as marketing coordinator at Meridian Solutions, I thought his behavior was just his way of maintaining high standards. By my second year as marketing manager, I saw it clearly: systematic belittlement designed to keep me in my place. The day he referred to my Harvard MBA as my little degree during a client meeting was when I decided to document everything in a dedicated journal. "You're overreacting," my colleague Marcus told me when I showed him the journal after 6 months. That's just how leadership talks in corporate America. But I knew better. Leadership shouldn't dismiss market analysis because a woman presented it. Leadership shouldn't accidentally leave your name off presentation slides after you did all the work. Leadership shouldn't refer to you as the girl in emails to other executives. What started as post-it notes evolved into a color-coded spreadsheet. Blue for professional undermining, red for inappropriate comments, green for when he took credit for my work, and yellow, the category that grew most quickly, for potentially illegal actions. The spreadsheet became my quiet rebellion, my proof that I wasn't imagining things, that this treatment wasn't normal or acceptable. Richard never understood that my excessive attention to detail, a criticism he noted on every performance review, would eventually be his downfall. When he berated me for wasting time learning our new CRM system, he didn't realize I was becoming the only person in marketing who fully understood how it worked. When he mocked my suggestion to revamp our digital infrastructure, saying it was cute that you think you understand technology, he had no idea I was becoming invaluable to our IT department. By my 3rd year, I'd become the unofficial technical liaison between marketing and IT. While Richard dismissed technology as stuff for the tech guys to handle, I was building relationships with our systems administrators. I stayed late to help fix email issues, volunteered to test new software, and offered to help manage access permissions for marketing team projects. "You've got a knack for this," Dave from IT told me after I helped identify a security flaw in our project management system. "Most marketing people run away from server talk." That knack earned me admin access to several company systems, access I never planned to misuse until I saw something that changed everything. Sarah from sales had joined the company around the same time I did. We weren't close, but we shared knowing glances during meetings when Richard would interrupt women but never men. After Sarah landed the Peterson account, our biggest client that year, Richard took all the executives out to celebrate. Sarah wasn't invited. The next morning I found her crying in the bathroom. "He cornered me yesterday," she said quietly, her eyes red. "Said I only got the account because Peterson wanted to sleep with me. Said I should be grateful he doesn't tell everyone that's how women make sales." 2 weeks later, Sarah was gone, of the mutual separation according to HR. A confidentiality agreement prevented her from discussing the terms. That night I used my admin access to search Richard's emails for Sarah's name. I wasn't proud of crossing this line, but Sarah was the 3rd woman to mysteriously leave after receiving Richard's special attention. What I found made me sick. An email chain between Richard and legal discussing a settlement and harassment allegations that needed to be handled quietly. My hands shook as I forwarded the emails to my personal account, then carefully erased any trace of my search. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about Sarah, about the women before her, and those who would come after if nothing changed. The email became the first in a secure folder I labeled insurance. Over the next 2 years, my insurance folder grew. Working late when the office was empty, I carefully documented financial irregularities I discovered. Vendor contracts with inflated prices and kickbacks to personal accounts. I found evidence of expense report fraud, falsified client data, and the most damning of all, Richard's persistent, inappropriate communications with our CEO's wife, Amanda. The messages to Amanda started professionally but soon turned personal. Miss seeing your smile around the office turned into late-night texts about how her husband doesn't appreciate her the way others would. The final thread included Richard begging for one more chance, after what seemed to be a confrontation, promising he'd make it up to her if she didn't tell her husband. Each discovery left me feeling both powerful and sick. Knowing what I knew made everyday interactions with Richard almost unbearable. Watching him strut through the office, making demeaning comments without consequences while projecting a polished image to clients and executives, filled me with a quiet anger. But I wasn't ready to use what I had. Not yet. The timing had to be perfect, the evidence irrefutable. Then came the announcement about my promised promotion to Director of Marketing. I'd worked 80-hour weeks for years, increased department revenue by 40%, and built relationships with clients who specifically requested to work with me. The promotion was practically guaranteed, until Richard called me into his office. "Elaine, about the director position," he said, not looking up from his phone. "Jackson's going to be taking that role. You understand, right? The executives need someone with gravitas. You'll keep supporting the team like you do so well." Jackson had been with the company 8 months. His main qualification appeared to be sharing Richard's love for golf. My promotion was given away without discussion, without reason, without even the courtesy of eye contact. That night, reviewing my insurance folder, I made my decision. The annual company gala was 2 weeks away. Richard would be giving his usual self-congratulatory speech about department achievements. My achievements. The entire executive team would be present, including the CEO, including his wife. For the first time in years, I felt something beyond the simmering resentment that had become my constant companion. I felt purpose. I felt power. And as I carefully organized the most damning evidence into a presentation folder, I felt something I hadn't experienced in Richard's presence for years. I felt completely calm. The 2 weeks before the gala passed in a blur of preparation, both professional and personal. I selected a navy blue dress that projected confidence without being flashy. Something that said, "I belong in leadership." Part of me still clung to a sliver of hope that Richard might publicly acknowledge my contributions, perhaps even reconsider the promotion. Foolish, I know. I spent extra time on my appearance that evening, applying makeup with precision, straightening my usually curly hair. My husband Tom noticed my nervous energy as I fussed with my earrings for the 5th time. "You're going to be amazing tonight," he said, squeezing my shoulders gently. "Remember who you are regardless of what that jerk says or doesn't say." Tom had watched me build my case for years, had held me through tears of frustration, had urged me more than once to quit. But he understood why I couldn't, why I needed to see this through. "I'm not expecting anything," I lied, checking my clutch one last time to ensure my USB drive was secure in the inner pocket. "It's just another corporate event." The Grand Oaks Hotel ballroom wasn't particularly grand, but Meridian Solutions always rented it for our annual gala. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over round tables dressed in white linens. A small stage stood at the front, flanked by 2 large projection screens I had very specific plans for later in the evening. I arrived early, nodding to the AV technician I'd befriended during last year's product launch. "Hey Mike, everything set up okay?" I asked casually. "All good, Lane. Your slides for the marketing highlight reel are loaded in the system," he confirmed. Though Richard sent some last-minute changes about an hour ago. Of course he did. Probably removing my name from another project I'd spearheaded. "Mind if I check the setup? I have some notes about the transition timing," I said, gesturing to the laptop connected to the projector. "Sure thing. I'm grabbing coffee." Passwords taped under the keyboard. That was all I needed. 5 minutes alone with the system. I quickly inserted my USB drive, created a hidden folder in the presentation directory, and loaded my insurance files. I programmed a simple command sequence that would allow me to trigger it remotely from my phone. My hands worked steadily, betraying none of the adrenaline coursing through me. By the time colleagues began arriving, I was seated at my assigned table, looking perfectly composed. I made small talk with the account managers seated nearby, asking about their children, commenting on recent client wins. No one would have guessed what was hidden beneath my practiced smile. Richard arrived fashionably late, making his entrance with the CEO Nathan and Nathan's wife Amanda. I watched Amanda carefully, noting how she maintained careful distance from Richard, how her smile tightened when he leaned in to say something to her. He knew. Of course she knew. But like so many of us, she'd been managing the situation, keeping the peace. Dinner was served, some bland chicken dish I barely tasted. Wine flowed freely, loosening tongues and brightening the room's energy. I sipped water, needing complete clarity for what was coming. Between the main course and dessert, Richard took the stage. He was wearing his signature navy suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, his custom Italian shoes gleaming under the spotlights. He looked every inch the successful executive as he tapped the microphone. "What a year it's been for Meridian Solutions," he began, his voice carrying that practiced warmth that had fooled so many clients. "Our growth has exceeded projections by 22%, we've added 15 major accounts, and our digital transformation initiative has revolutionized our service delivery. All my initiatives, all my work, all my late nights and early mornings. Before we get to department accomplishments, I have a special announcement," Richard continued, his smile broadening. "As many of you know, our marketing department has been the engine behind much of our growth this year." My heart rate quickened despite myself. Was he actually going to acknowledge my work? Was there some shred of professional integrity left in him? "And so, it gives me great pleasure to announce a new position in our leadership team. Please join me in congratulating Jackson Wells, our new Director of Marketing." Applause erupted as Jackson stood, grinning broadly, completely unaware that he was a pawn in Richard's game. I forced my hands together in automatic applause, my face frozen in what I hoped looked like surprise rather than devastation. "Jackson brings fresh energy to our team," Richard continued, "and after careful consideration, the executive committee agreed that his vision aligns perfectly with where we're taking Meridian in the coming years." Then came the moment. The exact second when 5 years of restraint shattered. Richard looked directly at me, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth, and added, "We considered all candidates carefully, of course. But you know how it is with these leadership roles. They require a certain presence. A woman in leadership? Cute idea, but we need someone who commands a room." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the audience. I saw several colleagues glance my way with pity or embarrassment. Jackson looked somewhat confused, as if he was just realizing he might be part of something unpleasant. The room seemed to tunnel around me as Richard continued with his speech. My cheeks burned, not with embarrassment but with cold fury. In that moment, every doubt about my plan vanished. Every moral qualm about exposing private emails disappeared. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every woman at Meridian who would face this same ceiling, these same jokes, this same dismissal of their capabilities. I sat through the rest of dinner in a state of focused calm. Colleagues stopped by to offer awkward consolations. "You should have gotten that promotion," whispered Diane from accounting. "Everyone knows you're the backbone of that department." I thanked them with a measured smile, watching Richard holding court at the executive's table. He was laughing, completely at ease, convinced of his untouchability. I glanced at my watch. 20 minutes until his closing remarks, the grand finale of the evening where he always took full credit for the year's accomplishments. As dessert plates were cleared, I excused myself to the ladies' room. In a private stall, I pulled out my phone and tested the remote connection to the presentation system. The hidden file directory appeared on my screen instantly. Everything was ready. When I returned to the ballroom, the lights had dimmed for Richard's final presentation. A slick video highlighting company achievements played on the screens. I took my seat, setting my phone on the table beside my water glass. Under the tablecloth, my fingers curled into fists, then relaxed deliberately. "Just one more speech," the woman next to me sighed. "Then we can all go home." "Actually," I replied, my voice steady, "I think tonight's ending might surprise everyone." And as Richard stepped confidently back onto the stage for his final remarks, I picked up my phone, tapped the screen 3 times, and waited for justice to finally have its moment. Richard tapped his champagne glass with a fork, his confident smile gleaming under the spotlight. Before we wrap up this wonderful evening, I want to share some thoughts about what makes Meridian Solutions exceptional. My finger hovered over my phone screen, heart pounding so loudly I was certain the woman beside me must hear it. I'd rehearsed this moment countless times in my mind, but now that it was here, a brief flicker of doubt surfaced. Was I really going to do this? Was there any turning back? At Meridian, integrity is our foundation, Richard continued, his voice dripping with manufactured sincerity. Everything we do is built on trust. With our clients, our partners, and most importantly with each other. That did it. The sheer hypocrisy snapped my last hesitation. I tapped the execution command on my phone, then set it face down on the table. 3 seconds passed. Nothing happened. Had the connection failed? I fought the urge to check my phone again, not wanting to draw attention. Our values set us apart from our competitors. Richard's words cut off abruptly as the screen behind him flickered. The sleek company logo disappeared, replaced by an email displayed in large, unmistakable text. From Richard Connolly. To James Westbrook, VP Finance. Subject: Visa Tech Contract. Jim. The extra $15K per month is set up through the shell company we discussed. Same arrangement as before, 70/30 split. Keep Nathan out of the paperwork. Richard faltered mid-sentence, turning to look at the screen. Confusion crossed his face, quickly replaced by shock as he recognized his own words. He lunged for the podium laptop, but nothing happened when he jabbed at the keyboard. There seems to be a technical, he began, but the screen changed again, displaying a second email. From Richard Connolly. To Linda Morrison Legal. Subject: Davis situation. Linda. Get the NDA signed today. Standard harassment settlement. $45,000 full confidentiality. I don't care what it takes. Make this go away before Nathan hears anything. Sarah's replacement starts Monday. A murmur rippled through the ballroom. I sat perfectly still, hands folded in my lap, face neutral despite the adrenaline flooding my system. Across the room I noticed Sarah's former teammate Jessica, her hand covering her mouth in shock. Richard's face had drained of color. This is some kind of hack, he stammered, looking frantically around the room. His eyes landed on me momentarily, but I kept my expression impassive. I wasn't ready to reveal myself yet. He tried to step in front of the screen, but the images kept changing, displaying email after email. Financial irregularities. Lies to clients. Manipulated reports. Each revelation landed like a physical blow to his carefully constructed facade. The AV technician rushed to the system controls at the back of the room, but I'd locked him out too. He wouldn't regain access until the full sequence played out. Exactly 4 minutes and 30 seconds of carefully curated evidence. The room had gone from confused murmurs to stunned silence. At the executives' table, Nathan had risen to his feet, his face darkening with each new revelation. But the worst was yet to come. Turn it off. Richard shouted at no one in particular, desperation cracking his voice. This is fabricated. The screen changed again. From Richard Connolly. To Amanda Jenkins' personal email. Subject: Last night. Amanda, you can't ignore me forever. What we had was real. Nathan doesn't appreciate you, he never has. Give me one more chance to make things right. I'm begging you. No one needs to know. This was followed immediately by a series of increasingly desperate text messages, culminating in threats to tell Nathan everything if she didn't respond. A sharp intake of breath swept through the room. All eyes swung from the screen to the executives' table, where Amanda sat rigid, her face a mask of contained fury. Nathan's hand had frozen midway to his water glass. I allowed myself to look directly at Richard for the first time since the presentation began. His face contorted between panic, rage, and disbelief. He was looking wildly around the room, seeking an escape, an explanation, any way out of this moment. This is not, I didn't. He looked like a cornered animal backing away from the podium as if it had burned him. My carefully constructed program continued relentlessly, displaying evidence of his pattern of behavior. Not just isolated incidents but a systematic abuse of power spanning years. The screen flashed with screenshots of him taking credit for my work, emails where he dismissed women's ideas only to present them as his own weeks later. And the most damning of all, his own performance evaluations of female employees, where he consistently rated attractive women higher regardless of their actual contributions. The final email appeared on screen larger than the others. From Richard Connolly to Nathan Jenkins. Subject: Director of Marketing position. Nathan: As discussed, I've decided Jackson is our man for the director role. Elaine's a workhorse, but let's be realistic. Clients want to deal with someone commanding, not a woman who'll be distracted by family priorities sooner or later. I've fed her enough excuses to keep her in line. A strange stillness settled over the ballroom. 200 people sat frozen, processing what they'd witnessed. The projection screen returned to the company logo as if nothing had happened, but everything had changed. The air felt electrically charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. I finally allowed myself to breathe normally, unclenching my hands under the table. I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding myself together until that moment. A strange calm settled over me. Whatever happened next, the truth was out. Richard's carefully constructed image was shattered beyond repair. Someone at the back of the room began to slowly clap. Others joined hesitantly, the applause building like rainfall, until nearly half the room was clapping, not for Richard but in recognition of the truth finally being exposed. Richard stood paralyzed, his mouth opening and closing wordlessly. His eyes darted around the room, seeking allies and finding none. Even Jackson, his hand-picked successor, was staring at him with undisguised disgust. For a single crystallized moment our eyes met across the room. In that instant he knew. He knew exactly who had orchestrated his downfall, who had been collecting evidence all along, who had turned his own words against him. His face transformed with rage, all pretense of civility evaporating. You, he mouthed silently, pointing at me with a shaking finger. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I simply held his gaze steadily, refusing to look away or show a single hint of regret for what I'd done. After years of being diminished, this was my moment of standing tall. The stillness broke with the scrape of a chair from the executive's table. Amanda had risen to her feet, her composure impressive given what had just been revealed to the entire company. Every eye in the room turned to her as she walked deliberately toward the stage where Richard stood. Amanda Jenkins moved with deliberate grace across the ballroom. The clicking of her heels against the hardwood floor seemed unnaturally loud in the silence. Her face remained composed, but her eyes burned with a cold fury I'd never seen before. She ascended the 3 steps to the stage with her head high, shoulders back, every inch the poised executive's wife, until she reached Richard. Amanda, I can explain, Richard said, his voice suddenly small. Those messages were taken out of Kant. The crack of her palm against his cheek echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. Richard staggered backward, his hand flying to his face in shock. How dare you, Amanda said, her voice low but carrying across the silent room. After everything my husband did for you. After I told you to stop. After I warned you. Richard's face crumpled into something pitiful, the confident executive mask completely shattered. Amanda, please. It wasn't like that. Someone's manipulated those emails. This is a setup. His desperate gaze swept the room, landing on me again. It was her, he shouted, jabbing his finger in my direction. Elaine did this. She's been gunning for my job for years. She fabricated everything because I didn't give her the promotion. 200 pairs of eyes turned to me. I remained seated, my back straight, returning their stares without flinching. I'd expected to be identified eventually. I'd prepared for it. Nathan Jenkins finally broke from his shocked stillness and strode toward the stage. Unlike his wife, his fury was anything but contained. His face had turned a dangerous shade of red, veins visibly pulsing at his temples. I trusted you, he said to Richard, his voice thick with betrayal. I brought you into my home. My children call you Uncle Rich. Nathan, brother, you know me, Richard pleaded, backing away. 17 years we've been friends. You can't believe. I saw the emails, Rich. Everyone saw them. Nathan roared. Then, more quietly but no less intensely, my wife? Really? My wife. The hotel's security team had materialized at the edges of the room, alerted by the commotion. 2 men in dark suits approached the stage cautiously, clearly uncomfortable about intervening in what had become a very personal confrontation among the company's leadership. Sir, one of them addressed Nathan, Would you like us to escort this gentleman out? Nathan nodded tersely, stepping back and taking Amanda's hand. Richard looked wildly around the room, suddenly seeming to register that this was really happening, that his career and reputation were imploding in real time, in front of everyone who mattered in his professional life. This is ridiculous. Richard's voice cracked as security approached him. I built this company. These accusations are, you can't just, I demand an investigation. As security took his arms, Richard's desperation turned to sobbing. Please, Nathan. Please don't do this. I can fix this. We can make this right. The transformation was astonishing, from confident executive to broken man in minutes. Mascara-streaked tears cut down his face as security led him toward the exit. He didn't resist physically but continued pleading, his voice growing more hysterical with each step. Just before reaching the door, Richard twisted in the security guard's grip to face the room one last time. She did this, he sobbed, looking directly at me. She's the one you should be throwing out. Ask her how she accessed private emails. Ask her what else she's been doing. The doors closed behind him, cutting off his accusations, but the damage to the evening was complete. The gala, meant to be a celebration of the company's success, had transformed into something no one quite knew how to navigate. For several long moments no one moved. Then, like a spell breaking, the room erupted in hushed conversations. I remained in my seat trying to process what had just happened. The adrenaline that had carried me through my plan was ebbing, leaving me lightheaded and strangely detached. Diane from accounting was the first to approach my table. Was it really you? She asked quietly, pulling out the chair beside me. Did you really gather all that evidence? I nodded, finding my voice. Every email was real. I didn't alter anything. God, Elaine. That was. She seemed unable to find the right word. Brave? Insane? I don't even know. Others began to drift toward my table. Some supportive, some merely curious. Jessica, Sarah's former teammate, pressed my hand with tears in her eyes. Sarah would have loved to see this, she whispered. Not everyone's reaction was positive. I overheard Marcus, always Richard's defender, muttering about appropriate channels and corporate espionage. Jackson, the newly appointed director of marketing, looked utterly lost, clearly wondering if his promotion was now tainted beyond salvaging. The executives huddled in urgent conversation at their table. I knew it was only a matter of time before they summoned me. Whether for commendation or condemnation remained to be seen. Tom called twice during this interlude. I texted him quickly, "It's done. Call you soon." I couldn't possibly explain everything that had happened in a text or rushed phone call. Nathan finally approached my table, his expression unreadable. The room quieted immediately. "Elaine," he said formally, "I think we need to have a conversation. Would you join us in the hotel's conference room?" I nodded and stood, smoothing my dress with hands that I was surprised to find were steady. As I followed Nathan through the ballroom, I felt the weight of every gaze. For someone who had spent years being overlooked, the sudden visibility was disorienting. In that moment I felt neither triumphant nor regretful, just strangely hollow. The revenge I'd meticulously planned for years had unfolded exactly as I'd intended, yet the satisfaction I'd anticipated remained elusive. Instead, I felt a complicated mixture of vindication and uncertainty. Richard was gone, his career undoubtedly ruined. The truth about his behavior was finally exposed. Justice in some form had been served. But as I walked away from the ballroom, I wondered about the cost, not to Richard, who deserved everything that happened, but to me. How would this night define me going forward? Would I forever be the woman who took down Richard Connolly, rather than being known for my actual work and capabilities? I straightened my spine and lifted my chin as I followed Nathan into the elevator. Whatever came next, whether reward or consequences, I would face it with the same determination that had carried me through years of documenting Richard's misdeeds. I had proven I wasn't powerless. I had shown that women couldn't be dismissed without consequence. For tonight that would have to be enough. The conference room felt too bright after the dimmed ballroom. Nathan, Amanda, and 3 board members sat across from me at the polished table. For 30 minutes I answered their questions clinically. How I discovered the emails, what prompted me to collect evidence, why I chose this moment to reveal everything. "I understand your frustration with being passed over," said Gerald, the oldest board member. but accessing private communications is a serious breach of company policy. Before I could respond, Amanda spoke up. Gerald, did you not see the same emails I did? This woman exposed years of harassment, fraud, and corruption that all of you missed, or ignored. The meeting ended without resolution. Nathan asked me to take Monday off while they determined next steps. I left feeling oddly deflated, wondering if I'd miscalculated the board's reaction. Tom was waiting in our apartment, pacing anxiously. I fell into his arms, finally allowing myself to feel the full emotional weight of the evening. I don't know if I still have a job, I admitted. Then we'll figure it out, he said firmly. I'm proud of you. Monday morning, my phone buzzed constantly with texts from colleagues seeking details. I ignored them all, spending the day alternating between nervous cleaning and obsessively checking my work email. Finally, at 4:30, Nathan called. We need you in the office tomorrow, 8 a.m. My office. I barely slept that night. The Meridian Solutions office felt different when I walked in Tuesday morning. Conversations stopped as I passed. Some people nodded supportively, others averted their eyes. The marketing department, my department, was conspicuously quiet, everyone watching me with uncertainty. Nathan's assistant ushered me in immediately. To my surprise, Nathan wasn't alone. 3 board members and Linda from legal sat around his desk. Elaine, Nathan began, his voice formal. After extensive discussions, the board has reached several decisions regarding recent events. My throat tightened. This was it, I was being fired, possibly sued. First, Richard Connolly has been terminated for cause, effective immediately. I nodded, having expected nothing less. Second, we're conducting a full audit of all financial dealings and HR complaints during his tenure. Again, unsurprising. Third, Nathan continued, we're implementing a company-wide anti-harassment training program and establishing an anonymous reporting system. These were positive steps but hardly groundbreaking. Finally, Nathan said, meeting my eyes directly, we need to address your position. I braced myself. While your methods were unconventional, you've demonstrated exceptional analytical skills, attention to detail, and dedication to this company. The board believes these qualities make you uniquely qualified to serve as our new compliance director. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. Compliance director? That's a completely new position. Yes, Nathan agreed. One we clearly need. Your role would include developing ethical guidelines, monitoring adherence to company policies, and providing a direct channel for employees to report concerns. The irony wasn't lost on me. Being rewarded for breaking rules by becoming the rule enforcer. Before I could respond, Linda slid a document across the table. Your new contract. The salary represents a 60% increase from your current compensation. Later that day, I returned to the marketing department to collect my things. Jackson, still technically the new marketing director, approached me awkwardly. I didn't know, he said quietly. About Richard. About you being passed over. I wouldn't have taken the position if... I know, I interrupted, surprising myself with my sincerity. That's why I'm not angry with you. Over the following weeks, Meridian underwent a transformation. 3 more executives resigned as the audit uncovered their complicity in Richard's schemes. HR personnel were replaced. New policies emerged, ones with actual teeth. More surprising were the personal transformations. Diane from accounting, previously so quiet, became my staunchest ally, regularly stopping by my new office with tips about potential issues. Marcus, once Richard's defender, now awkwardly apologized for not seeing what was happening. Most unexpected was Amanda Jenkins. She invited me to lunch a month after the gala, an invitation that sent whispers through the office. I should have done what you did years ago, she admitted over salads at a quiet restaurant. Richard's behavior didn't start recently. I convinced myself staying quiet was easier. Why didn't you tell Nathan? I asked, the question that had bothered me since reading those emails. The same reason many women stay silent. I worried I wouldn't be believed. That I'd somehow be blamed. She smiled ruefully. Sound familiar? It did. Despite my new title and office, I still battled imposter syndrome daily. Part of me waited for someone to expose me as a fraud, as someone who succeeded through destruction rather than merit. This feeling crystallized during my first company-wide presentation, 3 months after the gala. Standing where Richard once stood, I felt hundreds of eyes on me, some still judging, others curious, a few admiring. Today we're implementing new compliance protocols, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. These aren't arbitrary rules. They represent our commitment to creating a workplace where everyone's contributions are valued, where success doesn't require moral compromise. Halfway through my presentation, I noticed Sarah, the woman whose harassment had first prompted me to dig deeper, sitting in the back. She'd been rehired as part of the company's reconciliation efforts. Her small nod of approval meant more than any executive praise. The transition wasn't seamless. Some colleagues avoided me, uncomfortable with my new authority or how I'd acquired it. Jackson struggled to establish himself as a leader without Richard's shadow, which created tension when our departments needed to collaborate. 6 months after the gala, I found myself working late, reviewing compliance reports in my new office. The view wasn't spectacular, but the door had my name on it, something I'd dreamed about for years. Yet my victory felt complicated. I'd fantasized about advancement through recognition of my marketing talents, not my ability to expose wrongdoing. Tom noticed my ambivalence during our anniversary dinner that weekend. "You don't seem happy with your success," he observed. "What's bothering you?" "I never wanted to be known as the whistleblower," I admitted. "I wanted to be known for my work, my ideas." He considered this. "Maybe those aren't separate things. Your attention to detail, your persistence, your refusal to accept mistreatment. Those qualities define both your professional skills and your personal integrity." His perspective helped, but the complexity of my feelings remained. The path to justice is rarely clean or simple. My revenge had helped many, including myself, but also left scars. On the company, on colleagues caught in the crossfire, and on my own sense of professional identity. Still, when new female employees sought my advice or thanked me for creating a workplace where they could advance fairly, I recognized something valuable had emerged from that dramatic night. Whatever complexity lay in my motivations, the outcome had created positive change. As I settled into my role, I realized revenge hadn't been the end I truly sought. It was recognition, not just of my marketing skills, but of my full humanity in the workplace. The path to that recognition had been messy and imperfect, but I was finally seen. Not as the girl or a cute idea, but as a professional whose voice mattered. That, I decided as I placed a framed photo of Tom on my desk beside my new business cards, was a kind of justice worth having.